Bonjour, ici Micheline Bourque, je suis au Congrès RH 2018 à Montréal, un endroit pétillant qui réunit des experts de partout au Québec et même à l'extérieur, avec une série d'invités spéciaux qui nous viennent de partout dans le monde. Et là, nous sommes avec Monsieur Heath Slawner. Mr. Slawner, thank you so much for having some time for us to talk about books and discover a bit about your passion and who you are. So let's start with that. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be part. Obviously, I believe in HR. I believe in people. I'm a people first speaker. Generally, what I do is working alongside some other leaders. So right now I'm an igniter with the Start With Why. So that's Simon Sinek's team, and it's all part of the Start With Why movement. And our goal is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them. And so what that means from a leadership perspective is helping leaders and organizations define and articulate their purpose so that they're creating the kinds of conditions, the kind of culture, so that people can show up inspired, so that people feel like the work that they do matters. And that people can go home at the end of the day with a sense that they've contributed to something more than just a paycheck. So it's really about leadership and culture, and that's what I'm just incredibly passionate about. My own, personal why and what I bring to this in terms of what's my cause, what's my purpose. I wake up every day to connect people and ideas so that we live with more meaning. I believe that more meaning, that's the door, that's the opportunity that we all have to feel like, what we do matters.
You must be a fan of Viktor Frankl's Man's Life, Search for Meaning.
Absolutely, I've read that a number of times, and it's been instrumental in my development.
Is
Absolutely,
that right? That's
yep.
nice to hear.
Yeah.
What did you talk about today? You were one of the guest speakers here.
Sure.
Did you just tell me what you were telling them, or
No.
was there a little nuance?
No, in fact, what I spoke about today was completely new. Simon is working right now, as we speak, on a new book. It will be out at the end of the year. So at the end of 2018, the book called The Infinite Game will be published. I think in 2019, we're going to start to hear a lot more about what it means to be an infinite company, an infinite organization. And the high-level idea is that there are two kinds of games that you can play. There are finite games. And finite games are defined by having known players, fixed rules, and an agreed upon objective. There's a clear beginning and there's a clear ending. So think hockey, think board games, Monopoly, chess, it's over. Like,
Exactly.
it's a different thing. And that's according to game theory, the infinite game. And the infinite game is the game we play the infinite game itself. We play the infinite game, pet game. And so I believe that business is an infinite game.
Absolutely.
You don't win at business.
If you want to move on, you have to continue renovating yourself, remodeling your business,
Absolutely.
that type of thing.
It's the idea of innovation. It's the idea of pivoting. And yet, if you listen to most leaders and most companies, they act and speak like they're playing the finite game with finite rules. They talk about beating their competition. They talk about being number one. They talk about crushing this. They talk about all these rankings and ratings. We're obsessed with comparing ourselves to other people, but it's a depressing way to live. There's no joy in comparison. The joy comes from advancement of our cause. That's where innovation comes from. That's where culture comes from. That's where sort of the strength of our organization comes from. And so we believe that if you think you're playing a finite game, but you are in fact in an infinite game, you are going to end up in trouble one way or the other. And trouble in business looks like bankruptcy. It looks like being delisted. It looks like mergers, acquisitions. I mean, the examples are right there. Just one quick example. General Electric, 126 years old,
Company.
just got delisted from the Dow Jones and in trouble. And I believe it's because General Electric is playing the finite game. They don't know what game they're playing.
Okay, interesting. So it'll be quite a challenge to bring this new word out. Mr. Sinek was very successful, if I may use the term, with his work. With his work, Start with Why and Leaders That Eat Last. Obviously, you're a man who also enjoys books because you've also been marked by 2 other books. In one of the articles I saw about you, I found this phrase, and it might be a good way to talk about you. All happens at the intersection of leadership, influence, and trust. Is that 1, 2, 3? I mean, perhaps we could also introduce Mr. Cialdini's work, and also talk about those 2 books, because I think that they're part of you. And perhaps you can share what led you to become more than fans, but actors of this.
So you are absolutely right. I have been a student and a fan, and then really took that to the next stage and the next level. Originally, when I met Dr. Cialdini, this is now almost 10 years ago, someone had passed along the book. I read the book and I thought it was light bulbs. Do you know when you have a moment and you just say, from this moment on, everything is going to be different?
Yes.
And I was working in facilitation and workshops, training, and it was like I had to go to Muhammad. I had to go and see what this was all about. And I traveled to Arizona, and I ended up studying with Dr. Cialdini and his team over the course of a year-long period, and then I became certified. And to be certified means that you can now officially deliver the content, and it was really just workshops. But then after a few months, people started asking, well, hey, could you do it in 45 minutes? Well, I only knew a day. So that's where the speaking started, where I would have an opportunity to speak to more people in a shorter amount of time. And then after a few years, I felt like something was missing. That the influence tactics, the influence principles, how to persuade, that Dr. Cialdini was really the godfather. He was the leader in this area.
And he's still very active.
And he still is.
Didn't he come up with a new book recently?
His new book is a bestseller too. It's called Persuasion. I felt like something was missing because there are so many people using the tactics and the principles for the wrong reasons. And what I came to recognize is that trust is underneath there. We don't talk about it a lot. We don't have training courses on trust. We don't have tools to measure trust, but it's there. It's a feeling. You know when you trust someone. Like this feeling that I have your back, or that you have my back.
Absolutely.
And so what I realized is that the more trust you have, the more influence you have. In other words, you move the needle on one and you move the needle on the other. So I started to investigate, and then I came across The Trusted Advisor, which is another one of these seminal, important books that I think anyone would benefit from reading, because it really breaks down the trust process. There's really 2 books on trust that exist out there that are amazing. This is one of them. There also happens to be Stephen Covey's son wrote The Speed of Trust and Smart Trust, which is a slightly different model. And Green, Galford, and Meister, they really break down what it means to be trustworthy. And I thought it was such a good combination, complement to influence. These
like this one, is it a practical book? Is it something that's full of good tips that you can work from, or is it a book to bring you into the thought and to the process and to learning that this is something you should get into and go further with?
Let me break down the books. Dr. Cialdini, his original book, Influence, in the paperback, was originally a textbook. So it is heavy, it is filled with studies, and it was originally written, I don't think many people know this unless you've read it, it was originally written for consumers to defend themselves against marketers and salespeople and politicians, to understand what are the techniques that they're using to influence you to do the things that they want you to do. And it became a bestseller because those same politicians and salespeople and marketers picked it up and said, finally we have our playbook. So there's a lot of richness, but there's a lot of The Trusted Advisor, however, filled with practical tips, tools, ideas, the trust equation, 10 things to do here, 10 things to do here, 10 things, how to be more trustworthy.
Excellent.
It really breaks down, especially for those in HR, where you're in this consultative, you don't have authority. You can't tell leadership, this is what you have to do. You have to get buy-in, you have to be listening, but you also need to have the courage to assert your opinions and give best practices and speak truth to power. I think the Trusted Advisor is a phenomenal resource. It's a great tool for anyone who needs to consult and give advice to others.
This has been available for 2000, you see?
Yeah,
it's a good life, shelf life.
It stands the test of time.
Marvelous.
It is a phenomenal book.
When is your book coming out?
Great question. I've always hesitated to write a book, and I'll tell you why.
Is that right? Okay.
There are so many books out there.
That's true.
I only want to write a book if I genuinely believe the book needs to be written.
Okay.
I don't want to write a book just to write a book. There are so many. Nothing against anyone. I have many friends who are speakers, and it's no one in particular. Many people write a book because people tell them you should write a book. People write a book so they could get more this or get more that. I only want to write a book as part of the infinite game, as part of serving an audience or serving a group of people that I think would benefit from the message. I'm not there yet. Okay. Lots of ideas.
Yeah, okay. Taking notes and
I'm always observing. I love observing behavior. I love observing companies. One of the great things about working on Simon's team as an igniter is that we get to travel around the world.
Right.
We get to work with small companies and large companies. We get to work with companies that are 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 people, and there's not that many in the world that have that many employees. So you can think there's a handful.
Name one at least.
But then we also get to work with a small architecture firm in the Midwest, or an accounting firm, or a restaurant chain. We get to work with all different kinds of companies, and what it proves to me is that this idea of purpose is universal. We get requests from Australia, we get requests from Asia, we get requests from Asia, the Middle East, Europe, North America, Canada, government, for-profit, not-for-profit, all different kinds of companies, all different kinds of people who have all said, enough already. Let's inject, let's embed, let's infuse our jobs, our organizations with a little more purpose. Let's tap into that. Everyone's a rock star, right?
Right, absolutely, yeah.
Just not in the same band.
No. Oh, that's interesting. So you like being in contact with entrepreneurs, working and making change happen with those organizations. You have a HR background, as you said. Yes and no.
I mean,
you've got the experience.
My
now.
HR background is I have been, I restarted my career working in training.
Okay.
So on the training and development,
that's
the workshop side.
Yeah.
On the technical side, like the benefits and the medical, no, I don't. The transactional side, no. Much more on the people side.
Right.
Leadership development, succession planning, how to design a program, how to work with high potentials, managing conflict, coaching, change, and all of that stuff.
Where are you based? Is it Toronto? Or?
So I am based actually here in Montreal.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
It's
didn't
okay.
know that. Oh,
Don't be sorry.
Oh, okay.
The interesting thing is that I so rarely have an opportunity to speak in Montreal.
Is
I would
that
say
right?
95%
Is that outside Montreal?
is outside of Montreal.
Oh, so you have your own
Outside of
offices
Montreal.
here?
Yeah,
Oh,
so I have
that's
offices here. Born and raised in Montreal. I left for a few years to work in the film industry, so I was in LA.
Okay.
I worked for a computer-based training company.
Okay.
And it didn't work out. It was a great company, great people, but it fizzled. There was no cause, there was no purpose. It just, and it was time to go. So I took a sabbatical, I left, I came back, and then I started working as a trainer, designing programs, facilitating, and
Excellent.
I found a level of comfort and a level of fulfillment at the front of the room.
Wow.
I know some people like to be behind.
No. I understand.
Some people want to be with their I love being at the front of the room.
You're a teacher.
Whether whether I get paid or not, get me a room, I'm good to go.
Okay.
So
we'll scrap that from the interview because we want you to get paid. But you're a book lover. You've introduced us to 3 Actually, classics, Start With Why. We didn't talk about that, but that's what made Simon Sinek, and it's still sold. It's available in French. It's available in, I'm sure, in many available in many languages. So thank you so much for taking time to.
You're welcome.
And what I like about your story is that these books have really impacted you. It really had a major impact, and also
have all touched me.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you very quickly. I met Simon in 2010 when the book was still new. It was just a year. I had seen the TED Talk. We were speaking at the same conference at a breakout session.
Is that right?
And I met him before, and I said to him, I'm a fanboy. I love your work. At the back of my head, I'm thinking, we're speaking at the exact same time. He's going to be full. I'm going to be empty in my room. And he said to me, Heath, we're like brothers. We're not in competition with one another.
Wow.
We're not rivals in that way. We're not adversaries. Both of our rooms are going to be full.
Wow.
And you know what?
They were full.
He was right. His room was full. My room was full.
For you.
I stayed in touch with him. And then in 2015, when I saw that he was going to start building out his team, I raised my hand and I said, if you are ever looking for, and then everything happens for a reason.
Wow.
Bing, bang. We meet, we connect, I meet the team, and slowly over the last few years, I've started to work more closely with the team, and now I'm an official igniter on the Start With Why team.
You must make a lot of people jealous.
I am beyond proud and grateful.
Absolutely.
We are an infinite organization, and we want to model that for others. The thing about Start With Why, I'll tell you, last thing, it has sold more copies every year than the year prior.
Is that right?
So that means 2018, more than 17, more than 16.
That's amazing.
That means it's been going up for a business book. That is
amazing.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
And next year, 2019, it will be the 10th anniversary of Start With Why.
Wow.
And so there'll be some stuff that we'll be talking about.
And so Ignite is coming in December, you said? The Infinite Game, excuse me.
The Infinite Game is coming December 31st.
Okay.
So it's going to hit right before New Year's. I think, I think your viewers will start to see quite a bit of attention around that because Simon.
But he's already talking about it. I mean, there's a couple of conferences on the. I think he did a TEDx on it.
He hasn't done a TEDx yet, but he's done Google, the New York Times.
Yes, that's right. The New York Times I saw. Yeah.
There's a few talks that are out there.
Okay.
Maybe there'll be a TED in the future. We don't know. I mean, it all depends on whether he gets invited. It doesn't matter which media you use now. It's surely going to be widespread. We really want people to at least take a step back and what game am I playing? Okay. Interesting. Well, I wish you continued success. Thank you. Thanks for spending time for us. You're so very welcome. Thanks for promoting books. Absolutely. And maybe we'll have you as an author one of these days. We never know. I hope so. That would be great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, thank you.